On the John Fredericks Radio Network nationwide, on Real America's Voice, the streaming platform of the Trump Revolution. It's now Dish Channel 219 and Comcast out in the Midwest, Chicago, Channel 113, Newsmax TV, and of course G News and GTV, subtitle in Mandarin and pushed throughout the world. We're also in many other places. Raheem, you want to? Because by the way, so we have over 21 million downloads on the podcast, which the podcast is kind of the sixth method of distribution here. But we're trending number one in the country in podcasts. Came out last night, early this morning. I want to thank our audience for doing that and for everybody to download the podcast in addition to watching. Really appreciate it. And look, this audience is what makes the difference. Most powerful audience in all of media. And you can tell that on things that have happened and results of the deplorables in Lao Beijing. So we're very, very honored to be here 6 days a week. Raheem, how people? We've got so many other distribution platforms. How else do people get us?
Yeah, and it's really important that people take this step as well, because the big tech companies could rip the carpet out from underneath us, without even any warning. So we've got a new account on Rumble. Rumble is a video streaming and YouTube style website, but does not censor. So I want people to go to rumble.com/Bannon's War Room. And if you're in the live chat on YouTube right now, I've actually pinned the link at the top of the live chat so you can go there and subscribe right away.
Where else? We're on Roku and all these other distribution platforms?
Yeah, Pluto, Roku. You can get it on your Apple TVs, on the Real America's Voice app, on all of those as well.
Real America's Voice app is fantastic. Anybody hasn't gotten that, you get all the shows. It's just really fantastic. They've done a great tech job there. And you get all the aspects. They've got amazing content right now. Okay, we've got so much more. The fight today is in Wisconsin. The fight today is in Michigan in these hearings. The fight is going to be in Pennsylvania. There's a blockbuster press conference. Real America's Voice, I think, is going to try to cover it. I believe there's going to be a live stream or some Zoom. There's going to be a press conference actually physically. I know we're going to try to have some people there, the GTV people who were yesterday. I was so proud of them. They were in Arizona, did a great job at the hearing. They're going to also be at the press conference today. So Pennsylvania in play with this 144 to 288,000 ballots with whistleblowers who are coming forward about that. Georgia's obviously in play. Any hedge fund guy that's sitting there fat, dumb, and happy and just saying, oh, it's going to be split government. Not so fast. These Senate races are, and we're advocates that we've got to win those Senate races. We're just practical, telling people how you're going to win them. You have to close the deal first in Georgia. People have to feel like their voices were heard and respected, right? And to go through the details of this, the details in Georgia are absolutely horrific. And I think every conservative should be increasingly upset, particularly as James O'Keefe over the next couple of days starts to drop the tapes of CNN, that the people like this lieutenant governor and the Secretary of State of Georgia run to CNN right away. And get up there and start spouting nonsense. You don't see him run into Real America's Voice. You don't see him run into Raheem Kassam's show. No chance they'll come in here into the war room. So it's just they just go to a propaganda network. Remember, Posobiec laid it out. This is what we've been talking about. Here's the biggest tell: they're nervous. You heard Aaron Burnett in their first thing. A massive spigot of disinformation. They're being overwhelmed because we're hitting them in all these different states. And we either go to Pennsylvania at Gettysburg, and we put forward the receipts. You go to Arizona, and people are saying, well, hey, what's the next step? Look, the next step is through the courts, but we have not given up on these state legislatures. All it takes is some of these governors to wake up, and that's the whole process that's going through right now. That's why I think today's a particularly explosive day. Wisconsin has started the election commission of Wisconsin that has Mr. Knudsen and has Bob Spindell. I guess they call it the sled, Bob the sled. These are two individuals.
You just say Bob the sled.
Is it Bob the sled?
It's the Bob sled.
The Bob sled. Bob the sled. But I thought it was a hashtag around him. This guy, Bob the Builder. This guy, we ought to trademark that. These two guys are amazing, and they're not going to back down today. And they're really going to start. They've got the governor all wrapped up now, and they're legally trying to force this thing through. It's a 5-day period where the president can respond to that. In addition, my understanding is there may be a massive lawsuit drop today that has it in it. So, Raheem, give me your perspective of where we are right now.
In a general reset, I mean, firstly, I just wanted to make mention of the fact that there's apparently in these tapes, a lot of Jeff Zucker whining about Trump and pushing that the capacity should be used for journalism, but exclusively on Trump and not anything else, pushing his reporters that way. So I can't wait for the tapes to drop this evening. I think we're in a much better position than we were last week, and I understand that a lot of the audience were a bit down in the dumps towards the end of last week, a little bit exhausted by it. There was a little bit of fatigue going on out there. I want to remind people that there is no time for LARPing, live action role playing in the live chats and everything. It's all fun and games.
I'm gonna be a boomer here for a second. What are you talking about?
Like, where you have all of the trust the plan type, where's Gina Haspel, all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, look, if
we've got to be laser focused.
Not just that. If you want to do that, that's the wrong place for you. Just get out of their life. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see it. Seriously. We're about serious business here of saving this country and saving this republic. If that's what you want to do, there's many other venues to do it. So I don't want to get you got to be focused. We're not here, by the way, we always say this. We're not here to entertain you. This is not an entertainment show. We don't ever try to be like a talk radio show, which I think those guys do an amazing job. But it's a totally different deal. We're here in the war room. First off, we're here to win. This is the institute for victory, right? I don't like people that whine. I don't like people say we could have done this, we should have done this. I like people who win. And here's how you win. You grind. You have a plan. You stick to the plan, but you grind and you're relentless. And I don't. Last week, it's so tiring. This is just so bad. It's too much. Hey, I don't care. Suck it up. This is for the defense of your country. Okay? This is for the defense of your country. We're going to go through listen, you haven't seen the bad days yet. Okay? Let me give you a really bad day. That's the day after. If we don't get this done and seal this victory and let it be stolen, if we let it be stolen, the day after the inauguration, that's going to be a bad day. Okay? And there are going to be a lot of other bad days going after that. So I realize people are tired. Guys here are sick. I've felt better in my life, right? I'm not exactly as energized as normally. And the guys in Denver, Vish, you're going to let us know if we got to go to the always scintillating election commission in Wisconsin. But here's the beauty of it. The other night, it was on fire because they're fighting nonstop, right? The Democrats are trying to change this manual. So, Raheem, I'll get off my soapbox.
No, fine.
And I don't mean to – I'm not trying to pick on people that were doing that. What I'm saying is that we've got serious work here, right? And the serious work is it's incumbent upon you, this audience, to get the word out, right? Populist press and these things that we're putting up all the time, they don't have social media. They're all over us, right? And we're not whining about it. It's just, hey, that's just the way life is. Right? That's the rules. They change the rules, so you got to deal with it.
Look,
right?
It's the reason I raise it is just because I see so many things being intentionally memed and raised to distract. They're built to distract. They're built to pull people away from the real fight. And I think people need to realize that whenever there's something like this that just magically pops up and kind of tells you that everything's about to immediately be okay at the drop of a hat, that's a distraction, and it's made to make you impotent. Now, I also want to reflect for a moment on the fact that we've got ahead of ourselves now this what's going to happen this afternoon at 2 p.m. We've heard amazing things, and this was whistleblowers. This is ordinary people out there who are rising to the challenge and defending their nation, defending the election security, defending the integrity of the Constitution. You look yesterday at Arizona and the hearing there, and the lady who's she's shaking as she's speaking. She's visibly nervous, but she's telling you she volunteered to go to this thing, spend 15 hours of her day there on election day to monitor and fight the election results and each and every single ballot paper that came in and looked bad and was being duplicated and whatever it was for every single one of those fights. And I listened to her whole testimony yesterday, and I was so moved by the fact that this is clearly just an ordinary person. She's not the chairman of the local Republican Party or whatever. She's an ordinary person who has risen to the call to action. And it was a call to action that we were making on this show. Hey, go out and be election monitors, right? And that's what ordinary people did. I know people who did it. I know listeners of the show who did it. And it doesn't stop there. Then you were an election monitor. Now you're a witness. Now you're giving testimony. Now you're signing an affidavit. you will run. You will not walk towards the fire anymore. You will run towards it. That's the point.
What's going to happen to these? Give people an idea of what's going to happen to these whistleblowers when they come forward today. If their names are put forward, I imagine there's going to have to be some sort of identification. The charges are so explosive. Phil Klein's a pro in how to do this, but Raheem, give people an idea of what the left will immediately do.
Drag them through hell. By their hair. Every single Facebook post, every single thing they did in high school, every single grade they got or didn't get, every single scorned ex-girlfriend, anything, everything, retweets, likes. They will go through your entire life and try to ruin you. And you just have to get used to that. Accept it. We all do it. We're no more special than anybody else in the audience. That's what happens.
Talk about Phil Klein and about his team. This Amistad project and Thomas More. They've got researchers. They have analytical people. They've actually been sharing their analytical data with people. They have investigators. Walk through who Phil Klein is and why is he important in this process.
So firstly, their website, I want people to make sure that they're going to, is got-freedom.org. That's got-freedom.org. Now, they are an incredible group of litigators, people who have served in high-profile positions like Phil himself, along with a whole bunch of other people. Jenna Ellis is part of the team at Got Freedom as well, obviously doing something different at the moment. But they have just an incredible team of people over there who are investigators, are forensic, are very, very serious and very, very qualified people. The URL again, because I know they run off donations, is got-freedom.org.
And today, this is a part of an investigation. People should know what I'm hearing is that they have investigations in other states, and there are other whistleblowers, because Phil was an attorney general, right, knows how to do this, that there may be other whistleblowers coming up. You've heard a lot of rumors about other people coming up that know details about this. Anything you can share with us on that front, William?
Yeah, I mean, they are looking at the same sort of situations across Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. So today, I believe you'll mostly be hearing from the Pennsylvania side of things, but there are going to be more of these. And I guess we should actually be talking directly to potential whistleblowers out there. If you saw something, say something. And the guys at Got Freedom and the Amistad Project, Thomas More Society, all these guys will go to the ends of the earth to accommodate you, to make sure that you are safe, to make sure that your story is told accurately, to make sure that you're anonymous if you want to be kept anonymous. Your job is to reach out to people.
How does this change? I answer this on the flip side. We're going to go to break here, but for Greg Manns. You just had this big brouhaha in Pennsylvania. We actually had a great presentation in Gettysburg. Yet, at the end of the day, the Cutler and Cormac and the leaders just killed it. How would this change it today? We're going to get Greg Manns' response. How is this going to change Pennsylvania with this potentially explosive whistleblower press conference today at 2:00, run by the Thomas More Society's Phil Klein? We'll return in just a moment. We're going to have Dr. Yan on here on CNN saying she was actually right. The War Room was right. They were wrong. We'll be back in just a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
So I think some of what we heard is that in some cases, facilities, because of the additional outreach and training, may have had an opportunity to support their residents in a way that didn't occur previously. That being said, during a pandemic, I know facility staff were stretched very thin. So it required them to go above and beyond to also support residents with voting during this time. And I want to commend their efforts. We received a lot of calls with questions and looking at resource materials and so on. And we were happy to be a resource and also to refer them to Election Commission staff to address questions.
You're currently listening to the Wisconsin Election Commission's hearing. We're bringing you the live footage from this digital meeting that's taking place right now in Wisconsin. Let's have a listen to what they have to say.
Madam Chair, I do not see Ms. Newcomer as one of our attendees.
All right. If she does come in, we will watch for her. Our next speaker then will be Daryl Marine, followed by Ginny Dankmeyer. Mr. Marine.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and all the commissioners for giving the public this opportunity to make remarks. I speak to you today not as the leader of any of the organizations I'm involved, but as a resident and a voter here in our great state. I'll be forwarding my written remarks, but due to time constraint, would like to just share with you on the public record right now some of the things I witnessed during the recount process here in Milwaukee County. So with that, I'll begin. First, I'd like to congratulate all those involved with the recount process in both Dane and Milwaukee counties. I was present at the Milwaukee County recount for a period of 4 days. The level of transparency I witnessed during this period of time was unparalleled. Not only were there a large number of observers representing those in the contested race, but the entire proceeding was live streamed from a variety of different angles throughout the facility. In fact, on one day, the entire recount process was actually halted when the live stream ended unexpectedly. Once again, all of these are emblematic of the measures that were put in place to ensure full transparency was provided, and that's really brought a whole new level of confidence in the results, not just here to the residents of Wisconsin, but across the nation, which has been watching. While there were periods of extended delay, in the end, concerns were addressed, codes of conduct implemented, and the count was allowed to move forward. The counters at the tables, while not obliged to, frequently answered questions asked by observers, and when they did not, the municipal clerk, who is obliged to, provided the requested information in a timely manner. In one instance, a municipality had lined up rows of boxes filled with ballots on the floor and had their counters literally on their knees in full view of all. This drew a lot of attention and concern by some, as you may imagine. Videos and photos began to be taken, etc. I simply gathered representatives from the various campaigns and asked the municipal clerk to come on over and explain what was happening. The clerk clearly explained that they had placed all the ballots there on the floor in full view because she wanted to see everybody place those ballots back into the new pouches to be sealed. And she wanted it to be witnessed clearly by all. She then, after sensing the concern of a few, went one step further and told all of her counters to literally take them to one single table that had more than enough observers so they could watch them place those ballots into those sealable one-time use pouches. Once again, wanting to make sure everybody was comfortable with their actions. Just one of many examples that I witnessed throughout my work there over those 4 days. In closing, I want to thank everyone involved in what was a very intentional and transparent process for both the election and the recount.
I want to give
for
some
your efforts
breaking
and
news.
for all the clerks throughout the
down.
city.
Give some breaking news. In Nevada, Brian Kennedy tells us that there's a court order just been put forward, allows the Trump campaign to start to examine the entire voting system of Dominion starting at 1 p.m. today, Las Vegas time, and I think they're on Pacific time. So 1 p.m. today, the Trump campaign and their lawyers, Brian Kennedy, who's been the Claremont's been on the show many, many times. He's actually heading out with a cyber team. I think Colonel Waldron, who gave testimony yesterday, has been spectacular. Colonel Waldron is going to be, I think, heading up the team. So a cybersecurity team. So is that posted yet anywhere?
I don't see it anywhere.
I don't see if that's breaking.
Yeah, heading to Vegas. Court order now allows the Trump campaign to get in and examine the entire voting system, starting at 1 p.m. local time. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I know we go through good days and bad days. This is a good day. Okay, right now in Wisconsin, you're hearing the back and forth between the election commission. The governor got called out by the election commission saying, hey, you didn't have the right to certify this thing just because the chairman says so. The chairman's a Democrat. The rules say, the law says it's 5 days, Trump gets to rebut it. I think they're going to give a formal rebuttal, right, of going through this audit, right, of the 100 to 200,000 illegal ballots, and that's what they were, illegal ballots. So that's what you're going to see. Also, I think they're going to go to Jack, is there something wrong?
No. I was just there was something from the live stream. I was wondering if they were hearing your mic well enough, and I was trying to signal Vish that.
Okay. He normally responds to this thing like that. That's okay. Jack Maxey gives me a chop block in the middle, like the ventriloquist. I thought you were Charlie. I thought you were the. So we have activity in Wisconsin. We have a hearing going on in a hearing, including Democrats in Michigan. We have now, for the first time, actually allowed to get our hands on a system in Nevada. You've had still blowback, and I got to tell you, the intense blowback in Arizona. People are furious that you had that yesterday and a special session has not been called. So you're going to see a lot of activity coming out of Arizona. There's already, we talked to John Fredericks, that people are furious in Georgia, and they're just not going to take this, right? They're just not going to take this kind of blow off by this Republican establishment, and they're certainly not going to take guys continually going on to CNN. I mean, after tonight, when Project Veritas, and O'Keefe dropped the 2 months of tapes they've got on CNN, and you see where they're targeting the president. You see they're trying to mock and ridicule the president. They're going after the president, putting lead on the target every day, right? Then the lieutenant governor is going to have to ask the question, why do you run to CNN all the time? I understand they're headquartered in Atlanta, but why do you run to them all the time, right? It's a propaganda department. So there is, and I'm leaving out the biggest. Phil Klein in Pennsylvania has a blockbuster. And if this holds up, and we have to see, that's the whole purpose about whistleblowers coming forward. You have to see if the thing holds up. But if it holds up, that is, I think, Jack, the key that picks the lock of all the analytical work of what people have been doing in Pennsylvania. It's part of what a potential solution could be about. Hey, here's how that physically took place. So Jack,
there's a little tell here, though, and I'm glad that this judge in Nevada took his job seriously. But imagine this: we talk about how we have an open society, Freedom of Information Act. Every public meeting has to have records, et cetera, and yet the election, the basis of everything we do, seems to be like a black box that we're not allowed to look inside. If there's anything in our society that we should all be able to see with absolute detail and clarity, it's the process by which we elect our public officials. So kudos to that judge in Nevada. I hope that other people take his lead, because the sooner we get to the bottom of this, the sooner we can get back to being a country that can move forward. Without it, we are not going to move forward.
Well, think about it. There's an evidentiary hearing. I think it's the first evidentiary hearing we've had in this whole process. I think there's an evidentiary hearing in Nevada on Thursday. So you've got a lot of activity. Every state right now is in play because we can prove the steal in each state. Remember, one falls, they all fall. Wisconsin flips, and Wisconsin, look, they're going to be spinning nonstop on this commission to try to say what they're going to do is go back and blame it all on COVID. Well, the rules had to be changed, right? You had to allow. We know we don't do early vote, but you had to do these funky absentee votes, of which the guy on the commission is already saying, "Hey, I walked in and they did it, but it's illegal. My vote shouldn't count. My wife's vote shouldn't count." They're trying to gun deck it. They're trying to use COVID to get around what the state law says. They're trying to do that on this early vote, and more importantly, they're trying to do it. And I think you just heard it when we came in about the long-term care facilities, right? And trying to help those people vote in long-term care facilities. There's already been certain people on what they call the ICs, the long-term care, went from, I think, 15,000 to 235,000. They've already had people going around. I think some Brainerd's guys have gone around in match where they have Facebook on guys that are skiing, and there's a whole bunch of stuff on Instagram. The one and only Jack Maxey. And Jack, the reason we're on this is that Jack, right before he go online, he says he's the one that says, make sure your phones are off, make sure your ringers are off. Just so we get a ding later.
I will say my phone is not in the best condition.
Yeah,
I've been fighting hard using it as a weapon.
That's a special ding. That's Jack Maxey's ex-wife wants to know where the alimony check is, right? This thing's late, right? Every day on the first of the month, right? We're not at noon on December 1st, and always asking.
We're much better than that.
Good.
Jack, we're live, right? Like this is a live show.
I do.
So there's a lot going on. I want to even see if we can get Brian Kennedy to talk to us more about what's taking place in Nevada, because I think that the audience is really interested in what actually can be found out. There is a lot, by the way, that can be found out if you get into that system. Now, I want the audience to remember that you had Georgia state lawyers that are supposed to work for you in Georgia residents, arguing on behalf of Dominion that, hey, you actually can't go into Dominion systems because that's their proprietary information. That's, it's a breach of whatever that is. And now it turns out that actually another state may well be letting people in. So if one does, they all have to. Precedent set.
Okay, we're going to take a short commercial break. When we come, Dr. Meng is going to join us from Hong Kong University. She's the defector that brought forward the truth. She's a witness. She's a fact witness in all this about Jake Tapper and CNN finally catching up 9 months after, 10 months after what actually happened. So we're going to get to that. We're also going to try to get Brian Kennedy on here, who's heading to Nevada with a cybersecurity team, even as we speak. Looks like the tide's shifted right here, right? We have the receipts.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
We have some breaking news for you in our world lead. CNN has obtained leaked documents from inside China, documents that reveal the missteps and the chaos of the Chinese government's early response to the coronavirus pandemic. The documents are from Hubei province, home to the city of Wuhan, where the pandemic is thought to have started. They show authorities released misleading public data on the number of deaths and the number of cases.
Scoop, CNN. If you'd listened to War Room Pandemic on the 25th of January, we broke the same news. And then later, when the great hero, Dr. Yiming Yan, came out of Hong Kong and defected, we were able to break her story and to go through their... I guess Fox News broke it, but we were able to follow up and make sure we got all the story. Before we bring in Dr. Yan, who's a hero to this audience, we haven't had her back on enough because of this fiasco of trying to steal the election. But I think Dr. Yan told me it's the most important election in 5,000 years of Chinese history. So we want to make sure we get this thing right. Breaking news. You give the range. You always give a range like on an IPO and a merger when you're selling a company. You give the client, hey, I think it could be between $100 and $200 million, or they usually like a little tighter than that. When you set the price of an IPO, right, you give them a thing and then it blows through it that day and trades up. The Trump campaign traded up. The lawsuit just got filed in Wisconsin, ladies and gentlemen. Raheem, how many? We said the range is going to be 100,000 to 200,000, and I kind of walked it back because somebody said, no, it's it could it'll probably be closer to the 100,000. The Trump campaign just dropped the lawsuit during the break in Wisconsin. Mr. Raheem Kassam.
So the campaign lawsuit includes 4 cases with what they say is clear evidence of unlawfulness, such as illegally altering absentee ballot envelopes, counting ballots that had no required application, overlooking unlawful claims of indefinite confinement, and holding illegal voting events called Democracy in the Park. These unlawful actions, say the campaign, affected no less than approximately 221,000 ballots out of over 3 million ballots cast in Wisconsin.
The difference in Wisconsin right now is 20,000, approximately. Yeah. 20,000. Oops. This does not look good for the Biden campaign. Remember, one falls, they all fall. In addition, if one state, you prove the cheating in one state, he will never, even if somehow they squeak through this, he will never be considered a legitimate president. This is why the Democratic Party and all these groups on the progressive left that did this, that tried to steal this, are so smug and smirking and not coming back and answering the questions. We're asking you to unify the country. Let's get to the bottom of this. You refuse to do it. He will never be considered legal or legitimate. And it'll force the country into a protracted constitutional crisis because we will never, ever back down. And right now you're seeing they're going to go into court and argue this out. So, and there's going to be more breaking news. Got a massive press conference this afternoon with whistleblowers coming forward on hundreds of thousands of ballots in Pennsylvania. You've got hearings going on in Michigan, even as we speak, with many of the people who have been on this program, talking about Wayne County, 135,000, potentially illegal ballots there, and what happened on those spikes in the middle of the night. You've got Brian Kennedy and a team of cyber guys. Brian's committed he's going to be on the show at 5 o'clock tonight. They're heading out and they're on the plane right now to Vegas. A judge has just had a court order. They get their hands on the voting system in Nevada. Okay? In Arizona, you've got congressmen who are saying, hey, they read the political story of Matt Gaetz, go, I'm in. Right? These at the federal level, they're just not going to sit there and let Ducey, the governor, just say, look at that, look at 12 hours of testimony you're saying, say, no, nothing to see here. Our systems are very strong, as he's sitting there writing. Ducey, you have to understand, if you do not move, your political career is over. You're not going to be senator. I know you had these Ducey's a fantasy. He's going to be senator one day. He's got a fantasy. He's going to be president one day. It's all a fantasy, okay? All you are is the governor right now. You got to perform your duties to make sure that every legal ballot counts and no illegal ballots count. And the same thing happening down in Georgia. So this is 6 states, and now they're all in. Now, Nevada, we kept telling you. Wisconsin, media doesn't want to talk about Wisconsin. Never hear peep about it. Guess why? They got the goods, okay? And you got Knutson and you got Spindell, and they're hammers. They're polite and they're nice. They're Wisconsinites. They're the new Iron Brigade, the new Black Hats.
One of our War Room Pandemic hashtag followers commented about that. He said, the Midwest has manners, which means we are committed to ideals greater than ourselves. Being nice is just a byproduct of this iron commitment and should never be mistaken for weakness.
Amen, brother. We've got to put that up on the site. That's amazing. Okay. Talk about nice. And
just
go ahead.
One more thing to add.
Anything, breaking. Let us know.
So the campaign has also included the full lawsuit as an attachment to their press release just a moment ago about it. It's 366 pages long.
Give me that again.
The suit itself is 366 pages, which I suppose I'll be going through in a moment.
No, but this is the thing. They're sitting there, and look, this is why Rudy Giuliani is a hero, right, of all the grief he's taking. Note to the mainstream media, and note to the Republicans mocking Rudy Giuliani, we're going to get some wins. One falls, they all fall. Because you're going to see people start saying, hey, this is just as bad here. Okay, I want to go to Dr. Yan. Dr. Yan, I'd like you to respond. I think CNN had this huge breaking story that's all this huge revelation about Hubei province in Wuhan. For the G News, GTV, War Room crowd, this is all news that Luda broke with you back in January mid-January, like January 19th. Can you walk through, though, your assessment of what this great breaking news that CNN's coming out with?
Sure, sir. So first, CNN has finally admit that there is solid evidence, as we already told people for months, that China government already hide the truth of COVID-19, and they will cover up in the government, and also the number of deaths toll of diagnosed cases wrong, and the technique is wrong, and also there are a lot of problems there. But the other thing I want to say is, besides that, there are many opinions in this report which I cannot agree with. First, they invited some experts that this is not because it cannot be 100% transparency, it's just because of technique problem. That is totally wrong. They just try to make Chinese government looks very innocent and blame the technique. And the second thing is very important, that they still try to blame Trump government, that although China government has done a lot of useful things and tried their best, but Trump downplayed this. So just image whose advice is Trump get at that time. I mean, who provided their professional data, professional suggestions to Trump? And Trump is not the expert in medicine, so why do you blame him instead of those experts? And the last thing is, people already believe Chinese Communist Party and WHO for too long. So if they still try, they can investigate the thing and give you the real answer. You are wrong.
I just want to, Raheem, and we're going to do some editing right here on the thing. Brian Kennedy is ready to talk to you ASAP.
Oh, brilliant.
So they're on a plane. They're heading in with a security detail. Very big breaking news out of Nevada. The Trump campaign is going to get their hands starting at 1 o'clock today, Pacific time, on a voting system. Let me repeat that. They're going to get their hands on a voting system today. They've got a cyber team heading out there. So big time for long faces out there in mainstream media land. Also, I will tell you, I think actually people may have a system or two in a couple of other states. Won't give that up right now, but I think there's parts of the system's already being deconstructed. Dr. Yan, and we're going to have you hopefully back on tonight to go into this in more detail when we have more time. But one of the things that the CCP has been doing over the last week, they've been going out of their way to somehow show the world, and maybe because they knew this was coming out and the mainstream media would finally catch up with Dr. Yan and War Room and GTV after a year of denying it. But the Chinese Communist Party at the highest levels are going out of their way to somehow say, oh, no, Dr. Yan's wrong. It didn't come from Wuhan. But you know what? It didn't come from the fresh market either. It actually came from Europe, right? Or it came from someplace else in the world. But why for our audience, why right now have they decided that it's in their interest to push out that this came from Europe, or the CCP had nothing to do with this, and particularly Wuhan lab had nothing to do with this?
Because more and more evidence shows and also can verify my point that they are the killer of the people in the world for COVID-19. And this is a government that purposely did this and released it to the world. They are scared. And when more people understand, it's more scared because people will hold them accountable.
Dr. Yan, I tell you, what's so amazing is now that the CNN starting to concur with our original analysis of what went on. We wonder how long it's going to be until CNN actually starts to agree with your point that this came from specifically the Wuhan lab and it came from a biological weapons program. Can you give our audience, because if you look at this whole debate we're having over this election right now in Wisconsin, what are they arguing about? They're arguing about COVID-19. They're arguing about COVID-19 in the nursing homes and how votes are collected, or you couldn't do early voting, but you had to have absentee. Their whole excuse is that COVID-19 forced us to do this, and that's why those 221,000 votes should count, and Donald Trump should lose Wisconsin. So our whole life is permeated by this. When do you think they're going to come to the same conclusion that you've come to, that this is a biological weapon, and in your belief that it was purposely let loose in the world by the Chinese Communist Party?
I think the time is once they give up their dream, the Chinese Communist Party will collaborate with WHO experts to let people investigate the origin of COVID-19 in China. So until the day they give it up, there is no chance for them to admit this comes from China as a bioweapon.
Dr. Yan, thank you. You want to jump in, Jake?
No, I just wanted to say what Dr. Yan said was so important at the beginning. Yes, CNN has reported this, but it's always with a caveat, right? That it was a failure of some bureaucrats inside Wuhan who gave the bad data. It wasn't the intention of the Communist Party to provide bad data. People, it was the intention of the Communist Party to provide bad data. They are lying to this day about the extent of COVID-19 inside their country. And I think it's important that you pointed that out, because CNN is giving us only half the story.
Well, it's always Trump's fault. Dr. Yan, we got to jump. One thing I want to say before you go, because we're going to have you hopefully back on tonight or tomorrow to go into this in more depth. You talk about heroes. Rudy Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, these people are being attacked every day. The witnesses coming up, the whistleblowers. I know you're a hero to the Chinese people. You're also a hero to the American people. What you have come over here as a defector and been relentless about telling the truth, no matter how people are attacking you, left, right, and center. You have many supporters and many friends here in the United States. So we want to thank you so much for coming forward once again. Dr. Yan, and here's the thing you're going to find out, ladies and gentlemen. Everything we talk about, eventually, the other side will eventually admit to the truth. Okay? It took them a year. On Wuhan, on the 25th of January, we laid this whole thing. And the broadcast we were doing on Lunar New Year on the 19th of January, we were laying this all out. The same thing with this election. They can't hide from the truth, okay? Eventually it all comes out. And they try to spin it, and they try to have this thing, oh, you're conspiracy theory guys, you're a bunch of nutcases. Yeah. Where is CNN with all those resources, Zucker? Where were you? They talk about, they blame Trump. Oh, they got blood on their hands. The blood is on the hands of CNN. CNN, you're supposed to be the world's news organization, right? You sat there and looked the other way, and you kowtowed and you carried water for the Chinese Communist Party, just like Jack Maxey points out and Dr. Yan points out, you carried water today. Okay, we're going to take a short commercial break. Our out music is Take Down the CCP, quite appropriate on a day like today. We're going to come back with the author, Michael Walsh, of Last Stands, a new book out today. Be back in a second.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
In this whole ongoing discussion we've been having about toxic masculinity, now we've got a great book that goes into some depths about why men fight when all is lost. It's called Last Stands by an old friend and colleague of mine, Michael Walsh, one of the best writers in the country, wrote an amazing op-ed piece in the New York Post over the weekend that kind of distilled a lot of what's in this book. This book is a must-read. This is a great Christmas gift, particularly for young men in your family. If you have a boy 10, 11, 12 years old, he can get through this. It's not too hard. This is the book you get him. Although it's written for adults, this is a book he should read. It's got all the great sieges or last stands in military history. The writer is the first editor of the Andrew Breitbart's Big Government, a legendary guy on the right, and now has turned to be a writer who's written some amazing books. But Last Stands for Michael Walsh. So Michael, how did you? Why did having it out today is like amazing, because the timing couldn't be more perfect, right? Particularly for Christmas, and particularly given the fights that were going on with President Trump in defending his victory. How did you get the idea to do this?
Well, thank you, Steve, for having me on. It's interesting because I thought of this about 2.5 years ago, and I started kicking it around. I come from a military family, as I explain in the book. My father fought at the Chosin Reservoir with the 2-5 in the Marine Corps 70 years ago this week, in fact. So I've been around military stuff all my life, and I just was thinking there's not a book about what goes through men's minds when they are faced with almost certain destruction and annihilation. How do they get the courage and the character to fight to the end, even though they think high probability they're going to lose? And I started with the Greeks, and I moved right on to my father's own experiences at the reservoir, which comprised the last chapter of the book. And what I found was there's a remarkable consistency of what men think and what they fight for. And the short answer is they fight for themselves and they fight for their fellow soldiers. Everything else kind of gets put aside up to that point. Ideology goes out the window. Personal relationships go out the window. Your family back home, away from the battlefield, goes out the window. Your job is to do your work and survive. And that's what, in many cases, they did, and in some cases, they didn't, but often ended up winning the war in the end. So that's the cautionary tale for today, I think.
You've got some of the most famous ones in history, in Masada, Custer's Last Stand. You got the Alamo. You have obviously the Greeks, the 300 Spartans. What is the one that people maybe don't know that much about? Because you even give a fresh perspective of those. Those are all riveting. But you've got a couple in here that don't naturally come to mind unless you're a real student of military history. For a general audience, and the book is Last Stands by Michael Walsh, what are the ones that people may not know that much about, and what impressed you about those?
Well, I would say the principal one was the last stand of the Swiss Guard in 1527 in Rome. It's a little known and little remembered battle today, but it was crucial. It's part of the whole wars of religion. It was the German Lutherans against a handful of Swiss Guard in front of the Vatican. The city had been sacked in a fight between the French Emperor and the Holy Roman Emperor and 1,000 other people that were involved in this. But the goal of the Swiss Guard was to protect the Pope, Clement VII, and get him from the Vatican on the one side of the Tiber River. Those of you who've been to Rome will know what I'm talking about. And across the Borgo Pass into the Castel San Angelo, where he could be safe from murder. And this fight, which was captained by a man named Royst, the leader of the Swiss Guard, really established the Swiss Guard as the primal papacy defending institution. The Swiss had a great reputation for defensive warfare, which is why they were hired by the Pope in the first place. And this cemented their reputation. So when you see them today out in front of the Vatican, they're wearing their 16th century costumes. That is to commemorate this great battle in 1527, in which they died nearly a man in order to save the Pope and save the Church.
One of the keys to the book is you attribute a lot of this to the masculine attributes of heroism. So what are those attributes, and why are they so important in situations like this?
I think this is a really important point, Steve. So this is going to be the most controversial aspect of the book. I'm not in favor of women in the military. I'm certainly not in favor of them on the combat field. I don't think it's either morally correct or physiologically correct to have women fighting alongside of men. I think the masculine attributes, which go all the way back to the Greeks, is a sense of self-abnegation, a sense of fighting through no matter what the conditions. And the Marines at the reservoir 70 years ago today were fighting in 30 below zero conditions and outnumbered 2, 3, 4 to 1 by the counterattacking Chinese. It's a willingness to give yourself up. I think the old verities, as my readers know from my work, the old verities are verities for a reason. And that men are the progenitors of life, women are the creators of life, the vessels of life. And to give women's bodies up on the battlefield is anti-human and anti-nature. So I'm celebrating the willingness of men to die, not just for their beliefs, their family, for each other, for themselves, for their country, for God. All these concepts, which are now totally out of fashion, need to come back into fashion as we fight the ongoing battle against the left in this country, who are trying to destroy these institutions and norms.
One of the ways to bring it back is to get Last Stands, and particularly give it to young men in your family for Christmas. Last Stands by Michael Walsh. Michael, thank you very much. Look forward to having you back on to talk more in depth about the book. We're going to do a deep dive on this. And a very important book, Last Stand.
Thanks,
Why Men Fight When All Is Lost, by Michael Walsh, formerly the first editor at Breitbart.
Michael, I just want to say, and you'll appreciate as a historian, I'm reading Ernst Junger's Copes 154, and Steve hands me this book last night. So I am fully in. Great stuff. Can't wait to finish it, my friend.
Ernst Junger, Storm of Steel, baby. Okay, we're gonna take a break for a couple hours, and we'll be back at 5 o'clock. A lot happening today. The press conference are going to go. I think Real America's Voice is going to try to cover as much of the Wisconsin Commission. President Trump filed a massive lawsuit. No fewer than 221,000 illegal ballots in Wisconsin. Press conference at 2 o'clock with Phil Klein about 144,000 to 288,000 illegal ballots in Pennsylvania. We're going to get a response from Pennsylvania. We'll be covering the known universe about all of this. Is this the last stand of the Trump movement? Don't think so. See you at 5.